$1 billion of engineering just turned into a fireball over the Atlantic. The world is watching. The critics are already typing their obituaries for his career, mocking the hubris of a man who thought he could colonize the stars. In the control room, the air is thick with the scent of ozone and the heavy vibration of catastrophic failure. Thousands of hours of human labor have been reduced to scrap metal in a matter of seconds. And there is Elon Musk. He isn't screaming. He isn't looking for someone to blame. He isn't hiding his face in his hands. He is looking at the telemetry data with the cold, unblinking eyes of a high-frequency algorithm. To him, the explosion wasn't a tragedy. It was a rapid, unscheduled disassembly. It was a data set. It was the price of admission to the future. Why? Why does he remain unmoved when the architecture of his ambition collapses in front of a global audience? Because what you are witnessing is the modern application of an ancient Roman mechanism. It is the refusal to let an external event, no matter how loud or expensive, dictate the internal state of the mind. In the world of high-stakes power, this is called risk detachment. In the archive of the Sentinel, we call it the Stoic mind. If you cannot give this clinical analysis your undivided attention for the next 15 minutes, leave now. Go back to your safety. Go back to your fear of making mistakes. This archive is only for those who are ready to stop treating failure like a funeral and start treating it like a tactical update. You are currently dying, and you are spending that death avoiding the very risks that would make you sovereign. Most of you will turn this off in the next 3 minutes because the truth about your own cowardice is too heavy to hear. Good. Leave. This is for the garrison only. Most people operate on a psychological defect we call outcome slavery. Their happiness is a hostage to the results of their actions. If the project succeeds, they feel like kings. If the project fails, they feel like trash. They have no internal center of gravity. Their self-worth is a fluctuating stock price, controlled by the opinions of others and the whims of fate. But look at the mechanism of Elon Musk. Whether you admire his objectives or find them dangerous is irrelevant. What matters is his frame. He operates on the principle of selective detachment. He cares about the objective with a terrifying intensity, but he is completely indifferent to the embarrassment of public failure. In dark psychology, this is the ultimate move of dominance. When you fail publicly and you don't flinch, you rob the crowd of their power to shame you. Shame is a social leash. If you refuse to feel it, the leash breaks. You become unpredictable. You become untouchable. Think about your own life. When you make a mistake, you apologize profusely. You blush. You look at the floor. You are signaling to the room that you are a frame taker. You are admitting that you have violated a social code and you are begging for re-entry into the tribe. Musk does the opposite. When a rocket blows up, he tweets a joke or a technical detail. He refuses to inhabit the reality of shame. He stays in the reality of iteration. He has killed his social ego so that his operational objective can live. The Stoic philosopher Seneca, who advised the most powerful men in Rome, understood this architecture perfectly. He taught that adversity is the training ground for greatness. He didn't mean this in a poetic way. He meant it literally. He believed that a man who has never had his frame tested by a disaster is a man who doesn't actually know if his mind is under his own command. Musk treats a rocket explosion as a stoic premeditation of evils. He goes into the launch already having accepted the possibility of the fire, because he has already inhabited the reality of failure in his mind. When it happens in the physical world, it has no power to move him. He has already priced the disaster into the cost of doing business. He isn't being brave. He is being clinical. Bravery implies a struggle with fear. Musk has simply removed the component of fear by making failure an expected part of the calculation. This is the power of presence. When a leader remains calm while the ship is sinking, the crew stops looking at the water and starts looking at the leader. His stillness becomes the new gravity of the room. He owns the reality because he is the only one not being consumed by it. Reflect on your own explosions. You lost a job. You were rejected by a partner. You made a mistake in a meeting and everyone saw it. You felt that heat in your chest, that desperate need to explain, to justify, to shrink. In that moment, you were a slave. You accepted the world's verdict that you had lost. You handed over your sovereignty to the event. You let a temporary circumstance define your permanent value. The 1% see failure as information. The 99% see failure as identity. That is the entire distance between a puppet and a sentinel. If you are still here, you are part of the garrison. You are starting to see the mechanism behind the noise. If this analysis of high-stakes resilience feels like armor rather than entertainment, signal the machine. Leave a like. It is a tactical command to the algorithm to force this frequency into the feeds of those who are currently paralyzed by the fear of being wrong. Let us look back at the archive of history to find the ancestor of this unyielding frame. Consider Cato the Younger. Cato was the man who refused to inhabit the reality of Julius Caesar's rising dictatorship. He fought a war he knew he was likely to lose. He watched his allies flee, his resources vanish, and his republic crumble. When he finally lost the final battle, he didn't beg for mercy. He didn't write a letter of apology to Caesar to save his wealth. He maintained his frame until the very last second of his life. He decided that even if Caesar owned the physical world, he would never own Cato's judgment. This is the same psychological dominance we see in Musk's refusal to be cancelled or shamed by the media machine. When the world tells him he is failing, he re-narrates the failure. He calls it iterative design or free speech. He refuses to accept their labels. He stays inside his own inner citadel, where the only data that matters is the data that leads to the next objective. To the weak, this looks like a lack of empathy or a dangerous ego. To the sentinel, it is the only way to build anything of substance in a world designed to keep you small and manageable. I often ask myself why we are so terrified of being wrong in front of others. It is the primitive fear of the tribe's judgment. We think that if we fail publicly, we will be exiled. But in the modern age, exile is impossible if you are sovereign. If you own your own frame, there is no tribe that can kick you out of your own mind. Elon Musk understands the law of scarcity applied to emotional energy. He does not spend his outrage on critics. He does not spend his grief on broken hardware. He saves every drop of his cognitive energy for the mechanism of progress. When you practice non-reaction to failure, you are practicing a form of mental operational security. You are not giving your enemies the satisfaction of seeing you bleed. You are becoming a black box. They throw an insult, nothing. They cheer for your downfall, nothing. They wait for you to quit and you just keep building. The most terrifying person to argue with is the one who isn't trying to win the argument, but is simply observing your reaction. Musk doesn't fight his critics. He treats them as ambient noise. He devalues their input by giving it zero emotional currency. Let's look at the 2008 crisis at SpaceX and Tesla. Musk was days away from bankruptcy. He had a choice: split his remaining money between both companies and risk losing both, or choose one and let the other die. Most people would have collapsed under that pressure. They would have looked for a nice way out. Musk doubled down. He put his last cent into the companies, moved into a friend's basement, and continued to work. He wasn't hoping for a miracle. He was executing a stoic calculation. He had already accepted the possibility of being a nobody again. And because he was comfortable with the zero state, he was the only person in the room with the leverage to negotiate a win. This is the secret. You are only Truly dangerous when you have nothing left to lose, or when you act as if you don't. This is the architecture of the sovereign mind. It is built on 3 pillars of risk management that you must implement today. Pillar 1 is the logic of data. Failure is not a verdict on your value, it is a report on your current method. If the rocket blows up, the method was wrong, not the man. Separate your soul from your statistics. Become the clinical observer of your own life. Stop saying I failed and start saying the data shows this path is closed. Pillar 2 is frame dominance. When things go wrong, do not wait for others to define the event. Define it yourself. Control the narrative of the disaster. If you don't define the why of your failure, your enemies will do it for you, and they will use it to build a cage around your future. Pillar 3 is amor fati. Love the disaster, not because you are a masochist, but because the disaster is the only thing that shows you where the cracks in your fortress are. The explosion is the teacher. The rejection is the filter. The loss is the fuel. Every failure is a refinement process. It burns away the parts of you that were never going to survive the future anyway. I want you to try a tactical exercise tomorrow. It will be uncomfortable. Good. Take one thing you're afraid of failing at: a phone call, a pitch, a difficult conversation, and go into it with the explicit goal of failing. Not to be sloppy, but to be indifferent to the outcome. Walk into the room and expect the explosion, and when it happens, do not move your face. Do not defend yourself. Do not offer an excuse. Simply look at the outcome. Ask what is the data here, and move to the next task. You will feel a terrifying sense of freedom. You will realize that the fire everyone else is running from is actually where the power is forged. You will have become the sentinel at your own gate. Most people are too soft for this level of detachment. They need the warmth of constant success to feel real. They need the safety of never being laughed at. They would rather live a quiet, insignificant life than face a loud, significant failure. Let them have their safety. Let them have their comfortable mediocrity. That archive is not for them. Thomas Shelby, Donald Trump, Elon Musk, Cato the Younger, these are not heroes in this analysis. They are case studies. They are humans who realize that the world is a simulation of noise, and the only way to win is to remain the only unsimulated thing in the room. The greatest failure is not blowing up a rocket. The greatest failure is never leaving the launch pad because you were afraid of the smoke. It is the failure of potential, and that is the only disaster you should truly fear. We are building a garrison of the first 1,000 minds. If you are ready to stop being a slave to the outcome and start mastering the mechanism of risk, subscribe. Join the garrison. The next blueprint is being drawn as we speak. Before you leave the archive today, I want you to write one thing in the comments. I want you to identify your biggest fear of failure and write, IT is just data. Seal your intent. Kill the ego's need for success. Become unknowable. Spend the next hour reflecting on your biggest failure. Do not look for comfort. Do not look for an excuse. Look for the data. See what the fire was trying to teach you about the architecture of your soul. Master the failure. Control the frame. Own the outcome. Stay unshaken.